it sure is nice to come home at the end of a long day and enjoy a podcast. But you know what makes the experience that much better? Relaxing with a few puffs of smoke from my McQueen pipe. At McQueenPipes.com, I was able to find the perfect smoking pipe to suit my nerdy, yet dignified sensibilities. I especially love that each pipe is designed and handcrafted by a true artisan, and that all of their pipes are inspired by fantasy books and movies like The Lord of the Rings. Being a bit of a hobbit myself, my pipe is called the Barrel Rider, but they've also got pipes for wizards, rangers, dragon riders, or even goblins. If pipe tobacco isn't your thing, no worries. McQueen Pipes has got you covered with attachments for vaping or even cannabis. Head on over to McQueenPipes.com and use the code BIOGRAPHERS at checkout to receive 15% off of your entire order. Go ahead, treat your nerdy heart to something you'll cherish and enjoy your podcast listening experience in style with a McQueen pipe. That's Mac like mac and cheese and Queen like the band. McQueenPipes.com and use the code BIOGRAPHERS at checkout for a 15% discount on your whole order. Cheers, everyone, and happy podcasting.
I do hope you can see me today from where you are.
Ich bin ein Really.
If I'm generally anything, I guess I'm generally miserable.
This modern world of science and invention is of particular interest to women.
The people, I would say, there is no patent. Would you patent the sun?
I regard myself as a soldier, though a soldier of peace.
Welcome to the Biographers.
Close to this road, and they're all just laughing. And the camera kind of like walks up to Jeremy Clarkson, and he goes, I know this is going to sound really strange, but we've just spotted a bunch of American tourists, and I don't know why, but when you all travel, it is the most hilarious thing. And it pans over to this group of like older white people. And every single one of them is in a combination of white and tan. They're in like polo shirts. They have their New Balances on and their socks pulled up. And like, you're shouting to the world like, I don't belong here. You know what I mean? And it's always stuck with me, that little clip, because it's always made me go like, all right, whenever I travel, I'm going to look good when I travel. Not like,
yes,
I have to look cool. You know what I mean?
That's so funny that you said that. I literally, for the first time in my life, besides maybe my wedding, got pants tailored because I was like, I watched the most recent Wes Anderson film, which totally is making me sound like, liberal think tank snob. But I was watching the most recent Wes Anderson film, and I really liked the fashion there.
Yeah.
And I got these like vintage high-waisted pants. I really like the high-waisted look because I think it looks better on my silhouette. And I got them like tailor fit, nice. And I wanted to like have curated outfits that looked good for the weather. I wasn't going to be some guy wearing like a sweater in 80-degree weather because, that's not how they look in Japan.
Right.
And it made me feel just that extra little bit of snobbery. But to be fair, I am still a bumbling idiot. Like when we were in Hakone, which is like their version of Glenwood Springs, like a hot spring town. There was... Because Shalena, I've been picking up on what Shalena has been saying in Japanese. And there was, some lady selling like cookies or whatever, and I was going to go buy some. And, I say, hi, dozo, like, here you go. And, trying to say, the stuff that Shalena says to cashiers in Japanese because I've been able to copy what she's been doing. And then she goes, Nihongo. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea what she just said. But she said Nihongo, which tells me Japanese or Japan, something like that. So I'm guessing she's saying what everybody's been telling Shalena, which is your Japanese is really good. So then I was like, what does Shalena say when somebody says your Japanese is really good? And I go, mada this, which is like, oh, no, not so much. And then her and the lady right next to her burst out laughing. Do not wait until I leave. Burst out laughing. One of them is slamming their fist on the table. And I was like, what did I say? What did I do? And then like I had to go outside with Shalena and like analyze what they said. I told her what I remember them saying, kind of, and they're like, oh no, they asked how long you lived in Japan. And I was like, so imagine somebody coming up to you being like, oh, how long have you they're like, wow, your English is so great. How long have you lived in America? And they go, yes, not so much. Very bad. And then you're like, oh my God, this guy doesn't know any English. That's exactly
funny.
what happened to me in Japanese.
That's
they
pretty
literally
good.
laughed at my face. So I know that I'm not Anthony Bourdain, but who doesn't want to feel like him, right?
That's fair. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Biographers. I'm Daniel Newman, hanging out with Akiva Miola,
What's up, y'all?
the recently returned from the land of the rising sun, Akiva Miola.
Yes, sir.
And he was
Great
there
trip.
for 2 weeks, having a grand old time and being embarrassed by his lack of Japanese skills.
Yeah.
Not so
Yeah.
much. Not so much.
Not so much.
Sometimes, but
Sometimes I live in Japan.
that's I think that's to be expected anytime that you travel. Is you got to embarrass
That's
yourself
true.
a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like when I was in Iceland, one of the guy who gave me a tattoo when I was there, he was saying that one of the things he really did not like about Americans is that he said we're too nice to where he doesn't believe us. And I know exactly what he's talking about.
I know what you mean.
Which is like, we do it. We put on the front of like, I just want to be polite. I don't want to cause any waves. I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
It's that ultra aware of being offensive. So we're overly nice. And in Iceland, they're like, no, I think you look ugly right now. Like they're much more blunt about stuff. Right. And they're like, if you react negatively, that's not on me. I'm just being honest, you know?
I kind of wish we were more like that. Like in Japan, I've noticed the opposite, where they are so. The way that I would describe like being in Tokyo from an American perspective is like the city is filled with people who've never been to the city before. Like you bump into somebody on the street and they go, sorry, and then they like go around, or like you leave your bag in the wrong place in a restaurant. They go, and I'm just like, spit it out. Tell me what I'm doing wrong.
They're so polite. They don't want to say anything.
They don't want to say, and I'm like, just tell me I'm an idiot. Just where do I pay?
That's funny, man. That's really, really funny.
The first thing Shalane and I did when we came back was like, we walked into our house and we closed the doors and we just screamed because we were just like so tired of being so intentionally quiet for 2 weeks that we were just like,
Gotta be loud, finally.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
It's great, man. Let's hop into Mark Twain's experiences of
which
doing some traveling.
He's not going to go to Japan, but this episode we are definitely going to get into a few little splashes of world travel here that are pretty fun. But just before we get into Mark Twain Part 4, everybody, like always, quick reminder, if you are loving the show, if you're liking the show, or if you just want to be cool and give us some money, we'd ask that you do so on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/thebiographers. And if you're also, same thing, if you like us, love us, or you just want to be cool, we'd ask that you leave us a review somewhere, either on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever get your podcasting from. Cool?
Yes, please. Thank you.
All right. So with that, let's get going here into Mark Twain Part 4. Which I'm amazed we're already into Part 4. And I'm like,
yeah.
In his story, I'm like, dude, we're not even halfway through.
Oh, really? What do you think? Is it going to be 9 or 10?
Okay, I'm almost finished. I'm seriously like a couple paragraphs away from putting the bow on episode 5. Mm-hmm. And the reason it's taken longer for episode 5 is because I covered a bigger period of time in that portion, because a lot of stuff that I've been researching through has just been very like, that just doesn't really need to be included. That just is not that important. We really don't need to dive deep and spend much time onto that. So like it's moving a little bit faster. So we'll see. I'm thinking it'll probably be, I'm thinking somewhere around 8 or 9 episodes, but no promises. We'll see when we get there.
Yeah. I know the feeling where it's like you get your main thick biography book and you're like, okay, you do the quick math. You're like, it's going to be 40 pages per episode. And then for some reason, one episode, you get through 40 pages and you're like, nothing has happened.
Yes.
Oh no, I have to read 80 pages just so I can get this episode out.
Right.
This is totally fucking up my timetable. Like,
yeah. And it's not that it's not good information. It is. It's just not that like important, or I also just don't want to drag the feet of it too much and get to the bigger, more important things. So anyways, with that, let's get going into Part 4 of Mark Twain here.
Let's do it.
All right. Now, last time we saw the young adult Sam Clemens, a.k.a. Mark Twain, as the American Civil War kicked off. At the start of the war, Sam was happily working as a steamboat pilot navigating up and down the Mississippi River before he decided to join some of his hometown comrades in the Missouri State Guard, which they all treated like Boy Scout camp for adults. But this didn't last long, and in order to avoid conscription, Sam fled with his brother Orion to the Nevada Territory. After arriving in the utterly stereotypical Wild West town of Carson City, Sam bounced around between a few failed businesses before finally landing a spot as a journalist for the Territorial Enterprise. It was here that Sam began to sharpen his wit and skills as a writer and for the first time ever used the pen name of Mark Twain. Eventually, Sam moved to San Francisco, reporting for various publications and living the high-class life that was offered to San Francisco's most elite residents. But Sam was never very careful with his money, and after shuffling around between a few different publications, he found his wallet was damn near empty. After Sam posted bail for a buddy who smashed a beer pitcher over the head of a bartender during a saloon brawl, he headed into the hills of California to lay low for a while, if you remember that whole story.
Yeah. What was the guy's name? It was like Dick Stroker.
That was their mining partner. Oh gosh, off the top of my head, I can't remember what his friend's name was because it's such a blip on the radar of Mark Twain.
Yeah, it was so not relevant.
Yeah. But anyways, during this time with Dick Stoker, Mark Twain would write his first true masterpiece called The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County.
So good.
But where we left off last time, the American Civil War was coming to an end, and Mark Twain's short story had been published and reprinted across the entire country. Mark Twain had his first national hit on his hands, and people were hungry for more. But despite having a national hit on his hands, Sam was actually growing depressed. He had friends, but he was lonely and possessed a heart that was desperately looking for love, but had no real idea how to find it or what it might even look like.
Yeah, I guess his love life has been kind of a blank spot in his story so far.
Yeah, I mean, I've skipped over it a little bit. There are definitely, like, women along the way that he's had, like, sort of puppy love for, but who had nothing in return for him.
Gotcha.
He was... this is one of those reasons I hate to say it like this, but, like, I relate to him so hard that, like, I learned over time that I'm like, I am not for everyone, especially romantically. Like... my dating history prior to getting married was not broad. It was like, it was narrow, you know? And then it was like, once I found my special person, it was like, this is it. This is the way.
And like you and Kat like totally make sense. But
we do.
I get what you're saying where you're just like, I am a particularly unique brand of person.
And he was too. And especially if you think about this day and age where like people wanted this respectable, upstanding kind of guy or whatever, Mark Twain was this sort of like contrarian to all of that. He was kind of weird, kind of funny, just sort of like a novelty human being. So
yes,
he was not a hot commodity for ladies of the time, you know? So I think that was the struggle, that he was like, I want love, but I don't think anybody really wants me apart from just like, oh, that's Sam, he's a funny guy. And that's kind of it, you know? So anyhow. Now, he was also in debt up to his eyes and was trying to scrape all of his extra money together to pay it off. Believe it or not, Sam's depression was so overwhelming that he was even contemplating suicide and would later write, quote, I put the pistol to my head, but wasn't man enough to pull the trigger. Many times I have been sorry I did not succeed, but I was never ashamed of having tried.
Wow.
I know. Pretty... I mean, I don't know. Humans are humans. I think that's one of the reasons I love doing this show so much. But I think it's always amazing when you hear about somebody like Mark Twain, silly man, top of the world.
I was just about to say, yeah.
Who's deeply contemplating taking his own life, you know?
Yeah, because in your head, he is the character Mark Twain, but he's also still Sam Clemens. Like, he's still...
Yeah.
He's still a person. He's still a person who experienced the death of his brother. He's still a person who experienced the brutality of slavery as a kid, being poor, the war, like you said, having a tough love life. Just because his creative, I don't know, the product of his creativity is really funny and upbeat and lively doesn't necessarily mean that that's how he's living his life. That just means that's what he wants to write, you know?
Exactly. He is not exempt from all the other human feelings that we have, including bitter loneliness and depression, which we can see here. Now, financially, Sam just couldn't seem to find his footing. There was even a point where a businessman back east offered to buy up a long-held plot of land that the Clemens family owned in Tennessee, which was his dad had bought this plot of land in Tennessee as like an investment, but literally nobody wanted it. It was like the Clemens family held it, but it was just dead weight on them, basically. They were paying a little bit of property tax, and that was it. So, like, around this time, this businessman showed up and was like, hey, I'll buy it off of you. And they even offered them $200,000 for the land, which is about $4 million in today's currency, because the land was apparently perfect for vineyards, which is what the guy wanted to use it for. But Sam's brother, Orion, who was now trying to become a preacher, said no, because he had recently hopped on the temperance train.
Bro.
So he didn't like the idea that the land would be used to make alcohol and said no to $4 million.
That's so crazy.
It's bonkers,
so
dude.
The temperance movement was wild too. It's definitely one of those ones that has to be the offspring of American Christianity, because there are so many times in the Bible where alcohol is referred to and used. Like, I know for Judaism, like, there isn't a holiday that we have that we don't use wine. I don't know how that got off the ground, but yeah.
It's the best sort of I don't even know, attitude I've ever heard towards it was from Pete Holmes, the comedian. He's a modern day comedian. And it was in his show Crashing. And the whole show is about him kind of coming off of Christianity. He was raised very Christian, marries his Christian wife and all this kind of stuff. And this one person is like talking to him in the show and is asking about like, well, you know, what about drinking? You know, and he's like, no, I don't really drink. And he goes, but in the Bible, it's like Jesus, he turned water into wine. And Pete's response is amazing. He goes, it was one time. And I think that was the sort of the general attitude of these people as well. It was like, yeah, but it was one time. And beyond that, we're going to say alcohol is bad. Like, it was so just weird. This very kind of funny thing. Anyhow, once again, Sam was denied his fortune. So to cope with his emotions, Sam threw himself into his work and also into booze, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah.
Now, before long, he was known around San Francisco as Mark Twain, the drunk. And somewhere around the end of 1865, in a fit of drunken depression, Sam grabbed several stacks of paper containing years of his saved writings and unceremoniously threw them into the fire.
Oh, no!
There were no copies. So huge chunks of Mark Twain's earliest writings were now gone forever.
That's crazy.
Depression is a bitch, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, man. I was just talking about that last night with the Da Vinci episode about Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel painting his journal saying, I don't know why I'm here. I'm not a painter. Yeah. It's just like, it seems to be this super common occurrence with highly successful people that the second that they lose sight of their goal, they just like destroy themselves. Oh my God, that's terrible. It's like its own little burning of the Library of Alexandria that just happened there.
Yeah.
I wonder what was...
I know. And it's one of the tragedies of at least literary history is that we lost a lot of Mark Twain's writing from him. He burned it himself, which is very sad. But then, in March of 1866, Sam was invited on a journey that would change his life forever. A new high-speed ship called the Ajax was about to make its second ever journey to the Sandwich Islands, and Sam was invited to come along. And that is right. Sam Clemens was now headed for Hawaii. That was what the Sandwich Islands. That's what it was called before. The name was Hawaii. It was the Sandwich Islands.
That's so funny.
If you didn't know that. Huh. Now, as many people experience when visiting a tropical island, it proved to be just what the doctor ordered. The lush, basically untouched natural landscapes of what would later be named Hawaii were a literal breath of fresh air for Sam, and he would spend the next 4 months drinking the local booze, sampling the local cuisine, meeting the local politicians, and chilling on the beaches, watching native women swim naked in the ocean.
Oh my God.
He was perving on him for sure, dude. He was like, ooh, I'm going to be the lifeguard. Quite literally. He was like, just in case any of y'all drown, I'm just going to sit here and watch you.
And they're like, okay.
No, there's even a quote. They didn't care because for them it was normal, right?
Yeah,
It didn't matter. So they were like fine with it or whatever. But the funniest thing was that Mark Twain even wrote about that and basically said like, I watched as the surf came in and was shocked at how great swimmers they actually were. So his whole thing was he was like, they didn't need me at all. I just was there for fun.
That old pervert.
A little bit. I mean, he's like 31, something like that at this point. Not even.
True.
So he's not super old yet, but it is a little pervy, but I think it's hilarious. No.
Yeah, no, it's definitely in tune with the character.
Yeah. Now, anyhow, he toured between most of the islands, went on horseback trips through the jungles, canoed through the pristine waterways, and even tried his hand at a local sport he had never heard of or seen before in his life, something called surfing.
Wait, what?
Mark Twain tried to surf, dude.
That sounds like something
brain.
you'd see on like a shitty t-shirt, you know? It's like Mark Twain's, that's like a millennial t-shirt. Like
Yes.
That's so funny.
Yes. I read that and was like, no way. Like the image in my brain now of Mark Twain trying to hang 10. Oh, it's living rent free for a long time.
I imagine he's like in those like union pajamas, you know?
Absolutely. Yep.
Like 100%, like the wool pajamas with the buttons around the junk.
Yep. Like buttoned up to his neck. I'm 100% certain, but I don't know. They're in Hawaii,
mustache.
So maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, he had a mustache.
Maybe he was hanging
point.
10.
Maybe.
or 5 or 6. Who knows?
Or brain. Now, he took care to learn about the cultural history, the most famous warriors of old, and what political threats the people were currently facing. He saw a volcano fully erupt and experienced a similar situation a few days later while watching the native girls dance the hula.
I knew you were going to make some dumb joke. The second you said volcano erupt, I was like, here comes the dick joke.
Yeah, I couldn't help it. Come on.
Okay, but on a real note, so what's like the time frame for him in Hawaii? I'm interested because I know just a little smidgen about Hawaiian history.
So it was 1866, and he was there for 4 months. I think it was like June through like September.
It had not yet been instated as a state yet. This is still under the. This wasn't Lulukalani or
no
Kamehameha.
She was no. So she was, I want to say, from the early 1900s all the way up until I want to say like the 40s or so, something like that.
Yeah.
Because Hawaii was not made a state until what, the 50s, I think. If I'm not mistaken, late 50s, something like that. Because there was this whole boom in the 60s of people being like, we can all go to Hawaii now. It's totally, we don't have to have a passport. And then like the surfing revolution erupted in Hawaii from all these white people that could go there. I'll look that up for office hours, though, just to see what the timeline was on that one. I don't have it off the top of my head.
I'm curious about like who was in power and what this political situation was while he was out there looking at ladies and trying to surf.
Yes. But it wasn't all fun and games. A few months into his trip, a lifeboat filled with sailors washed up on the shore after enduring nearly 40 days adrift at sea. And Sam was there in the hospital, interviewing the survivors who regaled their harrowing tale at sea. This story would become the primary account of the Hornet, a ship that caught fire around the Horn of South America. And Sam's story would become a worldwide sensation. The story would eventually be sold to Harper's Monthly magazine under the title 43 Days in an Open Boat, which would give Mark Twain his first worldwide hit. So it was crazy. Yeah, as soon as he heard about it, he was like, I'm going to the hospital. I got to talk to these guys. I got to know how this was for them.
So they were in the bottom of South America and drifted all the way to Hawaii?
Yep. For 43 days, it took them to slowly drift in their lifeboat.
Oh, my God.
From the Horn of South Africa to Hawaii.
Did they... Whoa.
Yeah, dude.
That's also an office hours thing. I wonder, did they try to chart a course to Hawaii, or did they just so happen to magically bump into an island as they were adrift?
I mean, I think that's... if you ever... I mean, at the time... it was lifeboat stuff was basically like good luck. It was, you could try to make a makeshift sail, you could try to navigate, but you barely had a rudder, you barely had a sail.
Oh, they were on a lifeboat too.
Yeah,
Whoa.
dude. That's what I'm saying. It was like their main ship, the Hornet, caught fire, and they were like, abandon ship, and jumped into these lifeboats, and were literally just drifting along for 43 days.
That's fucking terrifying.
Yes, dude. It's like my nightmare. I mean... Anyway, yeah. So if anybody is ever
he
curious,
managed to be like right on the scene, and this became like an international thing.
Correct. Yeah, Mark Twain was the one that he was quite literally the first person to report on this event, which was a literally global sensation of a story.
Wow.
Very cool. But finally, his trip came to an end in July. There we go. And Sam made his way back to San Francisco, but with many a story to tell. Once back home, Sam finally decided he had enough material to follow in the footsteps of his pal, Artemus Ward, and create his own lecture, which we talked about, I think, in the last episode. Lectures could be many things, but for these two specifically, it is much more akin to a stand-up comedy special or a stand-up comedy tour. And actually, in fact, I say that in the next sentence. In modern times, we might call it a one-man show or comedy special, but back then they called it a lecture. Now, he wrote out his set and took a bet on himself by renting a 2,000-seat venue with opening night scheduled for October 2nd, 1866. In classic Mark Twain style, he took out an ad in every San Francisco newspaper that shifted between all caps letters and small print underneath that read, quote, "A splendid orchestra is in town but has not been engaged. A den of ferocious wild beasts will be on exhibition in the next block. Magnificent fireworks were in contemplation for this occasion, but the idea has been abandoned. A grand torchlight procession may be expected. In fact, the public are privileged to expect whatever they please."
We've got it all. If you want us to, maybe you bring it.
Right. We've got it all. If what you want is a guy standing on stage talking to you.
That's so funny.
It's really good.
God damn, he really makes you laugh.
I know, man. It's been a blast constantly reading through this guy's life. He's just a ton of fun. Now, as the date approached, Sam became more and more nervous, and every passing day he found his lecture less and less funny. He was so lacking in confidence that he paid 3 of his friends to attend the first show and laugh at his jokes just in case nobody else did. It's like so sweet.
I've heard this be a thing for comedians where they have just a banger joke, but since they've rehearsed it so much, they just can no longer see the forest for the trees. Right. I read a Bob Odenkirk's book, and he was talking about that, where he's just like, we had this amazing set, but we always had this one guy who wanted to change the jokes last minute because he got sick of them. And it's like, it's not about you, it's about the audience. This is going to be the first time for the audience. Right. That must be a really tough part of joke writing, is like, maybe something gave you a chuckle, and then a month later it's actually time for you to tell the joke, and you're like, you don't even like it anymore. Huh.
Yep. And that's
pretty
nerve-wracking. Similar to what happened to Mark Twain here. But when the night of his first performance finally arrived, he discovered that he didn't need his hired friends at all. Once the initial nerves went away, Sam found his voice in the character of Mark Twain. He was slightly crude, a bit gruff, and always frank, but it all felt comedic, and his slow southern drawl made it feel all the more charming. People had always laughed at his jokes in more casual settings, and his mother had always told him that his way of speaking, which she called Sammy's long talk, was hilarious. Modern comedians would now describe that long talk, quote unquote, as delivery and timing. That night, Sam discovered that he wasn't just funny in small groups. He was able to ensnare a full auditorium of 2,000 people in rapturous, gut-busting laughter. And pretty much just like that, the first true godfather of American stand-up comedy was born. All from this trip that he took to Hawaii, basically. Because that was the whole thing. He was telling this whole story of him going to Hawaii.
Dude.
Pretty fun, right?
Yeah.
Now,
man,
The night was a resounding success, with total ticket sales bringing in $1,200, but Sam only made $400 from the show. But it's about a third of it. Not bad.
Yeah.
So he hired a manager to not only help him take his shows on the road, but broker better deals with the venues, and he was soon booking gigs up and down the West Coast. Over the next 4 months, he gave performances every few nights, bouncing between cities to sold-out auditoriums. There was just something about his stage presence that people loved. His wild thicket of red hair, his bushy mustache, the stink eye he would cast across the entire audience, and his flamboyantly sloppy way of dressing. He was unconventional and unpolished, but that was exactly what people liked about him. He was different from anything they'd seen before. It was during this first run of performances that Sam really started to understand what it meant to engage with the audience and make them all feel like he was speaking to them personally as individuals. He started to draw upon the influences of his favorite storyteller, Uncle Daniel, the enslaved man he used to listen to as a child who told ghost stories. One such trait he really leaned into was the long pause. At first, he would add a long pause at a key time in the story with the audience, almost holding their breath, desperately waiting for him to finally explode with a thunderous crescendo, which caused the audience to either gasp or erupt with laughter, depending on the story. Then one night, he decided to put the idea to the true test. He walked on stage at the beginning of the performance, leaned toward the audience slightly, gave them all a bit of a stink eye, and slowly started to scan the crowd without saying a word. 5 seconds ticked by. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. A full minute. Nothing. Then he heard a laugh. Then several voices laughing. Then the whole auditorium was laughing, and he had said absolutely nothing. Like many musicians learn over the course of their careers, Sam discovered it wasn't the notes you play, but the spaces in between the notes that really hit people hard.
It's true.
So he was noticing, like, cadence, pause, just staring at people, them being uncomfortable, that made them laugh. Of being like, what is this guy doing? Like,
he's like almost like it's like he's doing scientific experiments on the art of stage of like, you know, comedy, stand-up comedy.
Right.
Where he's like, what are the factors that cause this weird scientific phenomenon that is, you know, stand-up comedy to exist? What causes it to work? What causes it to, you know, be effective? What causes it to be terrible? And the fact that he just was like, let me just see what happens if I don't say anything.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, this tells me something.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is why over the course of time, as decades passed, people were like, one of the greatest orators, not writers, to have ever lived was Mark Twain. And this is one of the reasons why. He actually spent this really long period of time figuring out, like, what is it to be a speaker? Especially a humorist, which was a very new idea. And we'll talk about that more in the next episode, that the concept of being what they called at that time a humorist, we would call it a comedian now, it wasn't even a thought, really, prior to Mark Twain. People could write funny things, but they couldn't do it in novel form. They couldn't do it in a broad spectrum. It was not natural. It was forced wit. Again, we'll talk about it later on, but man, he was really figuring it out at this point in time. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of like History of the World, where he's like, what are you? A stand-up philosopher?
Yeah.
Oh, a bullshit artist.
I mean, yeah, kind of. Now soon, he was in demand and touring around the country. With it came a bit of a rock star persona, like yelling at hotel staff for not dressing his room properly or berating an audience member for not taking off their hat during his performance. So he was very like,
so funny.
Behave or give me what I want.
That's so funny.
But soon, he started to realize that despite being really good at it, he just didn't love the life of a traveling performer. Further, he'd found that he had played pretty much everywhere he could on the West Coast, so he made plans to head to the east coast of the U.S., and from there, start a new adventure overseas. His current employer, the Alta California, decided they would pay for his entire trip moving forward, so long as he wrote articles about his adventures for publication. So, Sam boarded a steamship and headed for New York. The journey there was weirdly perilous. A storm ravaged the ship early on. 8 people died of cholera, and he was chided. Yeah, he was chided by the other first-class passengers who felt he didn't belong. One woman in particular, whom Sam described as a, quote, double-chinned old hag, would regularly scold him for his whiskey consumption and even reported him to the captain as she suspected he was a third-class passenger who'd snuck up to the first-class deck.
That's really funny.
So she was like, this vagabond does not belong.
Karen, ye old Karen. Wait, he boarded a steamship to New York. Where was he located originally? Was he like Gulf of Mexico area?
Yeah, no, he was in San Francisco. He was on the West Coast.
Why would he take a steamship?
Because the Transcontinental Railroad was not yet completed, I don't believe. And the steamship he could take around the Horn of South America, and that's how you got there at the time.
You went all the way around South America to get to...
Because the Panama Canal was not completed.
Panama Canal wasn't built. That's fucking weird.
Crazy, right?
That's so weird. It was like either covered wagon or steamship, but either way, it's going to take you forever to get back home. That's wild.
Right. And then also, I believe it was still around this time that they were trying to find the fabled Northwest Passage around Canada to shorten the trip, but that was like impossible. And they discovered over time that actually didn't exist.
Yeah.
To my knowledge. 99% sure of that.
Wild.
But yeah, so that was kind of how it was. Now, I want to say that it's only within the next like 10 years that the Transcontinental Railroad gets completed. So
gotcha.
This was the easiest
we must
way.
Be really close.
We're really close. But yeah, I don't think it was completed quite yet. But finally, after 27 days at sea, Sam landed in New York unscathed on January 12th, 1867. He was now 31 years old. Now, the New York Sam landed in was drastically different from the one he had visited some 13 years prior, which you remember when he was a very, very young man, he took a trip to New York.
Yeah.
The city was now home to almost 1 million people, aided largely by a massive wave of immigrants over the past 10 years. The hustle and bustle, business and industry-focused New York was now in stark contrast to the artsy, laid-back San Francisco he had just left. New York is all about the money, and fashion was becoming so prolific that a new novelty was sweeping through Manhattan like a whirlwind. The department store, which offered a whole new level of consumerism to those with means. So it was just around this time that the concept of the department store was invented.
Weird.
Before that, it was like general stores, and this is a bookstore, and like this is the tailor. Like, yeah, pretty funny, right?
Wow,
now,
he's surfing and going to the mall. That's so weird.
I mean, yeah, or you could say like shopping at Macy's and surfing, and like, yeah, Mark Twain.
Yeah.
Bananas. Now, books and magazines were also being published in higher volumes than ever before, not only because technology and printing was getting better, but because, if you'll remember from episode 1 of this series, McGuffey's Eclectic Reader helped produce the first modern generation of literate humans, so people could now read and were hungry for material. Now, there wasn't yet a name for this period of accelerated industry and wealth, but in about 6 years' time, Mark Twain would invent a term to describe it that would echo through history. The Gilded Age. And yes, Mark Twain coined the term The Gilded Age, so you have him to thank for the title of the HBO show.
Wow.
I know. Which I'm convinced, by the way, for any Gilded Age fans out there, he's got to show up eventually. If he doesn't, those showrunners need to smack in the face. Like,
yeah.
Because he lives into the 1900s, very, very early 1900s. But, like, the Gilded Age show takes place throughout, I think it starts in, like, 1882, something like that. So, like, he was very much around the area, and he only lived in upstate. We'll talk about that way later on. He lived in, like, the Connecticut area. And if he does not show up in that show, I'm going to be very upset. He needs to. Even just, like, an episode as a cameo.
Just from what I know from researching Tesla, since the two of them were buddies, like, they hung out at Delmonico's. They hung out in those circles. Like, they lived on very similar streets. Like, I remember when Tesla was, like, having his, like, brain fog and was beginning to, you know, get towards the end of his life. Like, his first episode of dementia was he asked some, like, little newspaper boy, like, hey, my friend Mark Twain really needs some money. Take it to 123, you know, Delmonico Street or something like that, which is, like, in the middle of where the Gilded Age takes place in the show, from what I understand.
And in the show, there's even a point where one of them mentions Delmonico's, too. I think I told you that before.
Yeah.
So, like, again, I'm like, he coined the term. You got to have a cameo of Mark Twain at some point if you don't want to be mad at you. Now, this is good stuff. Though Sam didn't necessarily love New York City, he did find it exciting and ripe with opportunity. He had made a nice little splash in the world of literature, but he decided it was now time to make waves by publishing a book of his very own. To help him in his endeavors, Sam reached out to a man named Charles Henry Webb, whom Sam knew only by reputation up to this point, and who, coincidentally, was living only a block or two away from Sam's hotel. Now, Charles Webb had already read much of Sam's prior work and really did believe in Sam's abilities as a writer. The two formed a fast friendship that would last for the remainder of both of their lives, and Charles got to work in organizing a series of Sam's work to be published as a collection. So rather than Sam having to write like a whole new novel, it was like, we're going to take a whole bunch of little short stories you've written in the past, put them all together, and we're going to publish that as a book.
Nice.
So that was kind of the idea, right?
Yeah.
Now, once organized, Charles arranged for Sam to meet a publisher named George Carleton. Now, George Carleton was a crusty old book publisher who did make a lot of money off of publishing, but had a legendarily bad eye for new, exciting literature. He had famously shut down an up-and-coming writer some years prior with the immortal line of, quote, "Whales, Mr. Melville?" Which is so good.
So we're talking about Moby Dick, right?
Yes, Herman Melville, the masterpiece of American literature. The guy literally, when he heard the pitch, went, "Whales, Mr. Melville?"
That's so fucking funny. I love... Brennan Lee Mulligan was talking about this, the concept of, like, the ideas man needs to be obliterated off the face of the earth. The guy who's like, he can see the future. Like, Rick Rubin, maybe we'll give an exception for him, but almost every other ideas man who's like, I can tell what the kids want. I can tell what needs to be sold. It feels like they are just the wrongest people on the planet. Like,
I mean... Yes.
The non-creative who's in charge of putting creative work out into the planet. Like,
I know.
Whales, Mr. Melville. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I was like, this is too good. Now, when Sam met George Carleton, his treatment was much the same. And after a thorough verbal berating, George ended his tirade to Sam by saying, quote, "Look at those shelves. Every one of them is loaded with books that are waiting for publication. Do I want any more? Excuse me, I don't. Good morning."
That's so fucking funny. I love watching, like, the occasional character in history who is like, Tesla, a motor on AC power? You gotta be an idiot. Yes. Like, I love seeing those people just, like, pop up throughout the story.
But there is a good little bow to this, okay? So, George, he was not without a sense of self-deprecation and humor, as in about 20 years from this point, he would run into a, by then very famous Mark Twain and say, quote, "I have a couple of such colossal distinctions to my credit. To wit, I refused a book of yours, and for this I stand without competitor as the prize ass of the 19th century." So he got it. He was like, that was a swing and a miss.
Hey, listen, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Yeah, like literally foot and mouth. You're one of the most famous authors of all time, and here I am not publishing you. Like,
that's so funny.
I literally was the first person you talked to. I shut you down, and I'm sorry. Like,
I could have. He could have made a killing too.
Yes, a lot. Now, Sam was knocked down He started writing for newspapers again, and his buddies convinced him to start performing again, but it threw him into another bout of depression, writing at the time, quote, "My thoughts persistently run on funerals and suicide." Like, really down. Now, he was still lonely, but his oddball nature wasn't exactly in demand for most ladies at the time. To help with his mental trials, a friend suggested he attend a Sunday morning sermon at Plymouth Church in Brooklyn, whose congregation was led by the legendary and massively influential preacher and theologian Henry Ward Beecher.
Not familiar. You're going to have to fill me in.
That's okay. He's one of those people that, like, either your ears just burned with ferocity or you were just like you going, who is that guy? But I'll tell you, we'll get into it here. For those unfamiliar, Henry Ward Beecher was among the first major Christian thinkers in America to emphasize God's love over God's wrath and the idea that you should have a personal relationship with Jesus. Further, Henry Ward Beecher practically invented the idea of preaching like a showman, and he was known to make jokes on stage, engage with the audience, recite poetry to drive his points home, and created buzz phrase metaphors like, quote, "A mother's heart is the child's schoolroom," and, quote, "The difference between persistence and obstinacy is that one comes from a strong will and the other from a strong won't."
That's so funny. Like, he's just like the first chill preacher in America.
I mean, in essence, and this hit me really hard because, as you know, I was raised in a very Christian household.
Yeah.
And I swear to you, one of the quotes that one of the pastors said in my church at one point that people love to requote was, "People that rely on money forget that money says trust in God." That is Henry Ward Beecher at the core. Like,
gotcha.
Those types of, like, metaphorical, like, I'm just going to draw on fucking whatever and then, like, make it into a Christian theme. Henry Ward Beecher. Like, I'm going to preach in a way that, like,
little gotcha phrases that make you think, but after just like a little bit of extra analysis, you're like, oh, this actually doesn't quite hold up to anything.
Right. Or, yeah, especially in that case, it was like, well, you do know that phrase, "In God We Trust," was put onto the money in the U.S. in like the 40s. So, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's not universal across the world. It's just the U.S., buddy. Like, anyway, like, even down to things like a lot of modern day preaching will be this thing of like, you know, I was listening to this podcast the other day and I heard this person say this thing and you know, it really struck me hard because I think what they were saying, they were meaning it negatively, but I took it positively. And here's what I mean. And they'll tell the story and then they'll go, "Turn in your Bibles to John chapter 7, verse 15. In the Bible it says," and then they'll read out a quote and they'll go, "See what I mean? They said it as a negative, but the Bible says that's a positive." Right? Henry Ward Beecher. That is Henry Ward Beecher. Like,
interesting.
It all came from this guy. It was the foundation that he built.
Of like televangelism a little bit.
Dude, honestly, we can make a direct traced line from Henry Ward Beecher to the Righteous Gemstones. Like,
yeah.
it is a seriously, like, you can find it. So again, for anybody who is Christian out there, I'm not trying to hate on you or anything. This was my background, although that's not what I believe in anymore. Go look in Henry Ward Beecher if you want to know more about how modern Christianity in America was formed. It really started from him. Pretty insane stuff. So again, he is so influential, it cannot be overstated. Like,
but I also, and correct me if I'm wrong, I also, to not entirely dog on him, see him as possibly a more positive influence in comparison to the churches at the time.
Yes.
It's like, it seems like he tried to, albeit in the very cheesy televangelist American way, tried to, like you said, preach a more positive, less fire and brimstone, less slavery is okay sort of,
correct,
American Christianity.
He wanted to focus on love and joy.
Gotcha.
Above most other things. So I think there is definitely a very strong argument to be made that there's a lot of positivity that came from him.
Yeah, a lot of cheesiness too, it seems, but
and there was controversy. We don't have time to get into it in this podcast, but there is some, let's say, shades of gray in his life. But he's still fascinating. And again, his impact on American culture is almost beyond belief. And it
makes me want to read about him now.
It's pretty astonishing how much influence this guy has held over the past several hundred years in America. And again, for anybody unfamiliar, just like you, Akiva, do yourself a favor and at least like read the Wikipedia about him, because it is fascinating and it gives you a lot of illumination about American culture. So anyhow, that's Henry Ward Beecher. And he was easily the most famous preacher in the United States for decades and is almost single-handedly responsible for modern Christianity in America.
Wow.
This is crazy too. He also came from a very famous family, as his half-sister, Harriet Beecher Stowe, was at this time the most famous author, not just female author, in America, with her book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was the second best-selling novel of the 19th century, second only to the Bible.
Wow.
That's the Beecher family.
They are the Gilded Age right now.
They are a powerhouse of American influence. And you said it earlier about the abolitionist thing. Although, obviously, Harriet Beecher Stowe's book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, there is scrutiny to be made in modern times. But at the time, it was revolutionarily anti-racist and anti-slavery.
Huh.
Again, it can be, there is some, let's say, problematic language in it now that people can scrutinize.
I imagine from the name Uncle Tom's Cabin, yeah.
But at the time, it was very eye-opening and illuminating for a lot of people to overcome a lot of prejudices and things like that. So just want to say. Now, Sam wasn't exactly convinced to become a member of the congregation, but he was impressed by the stylistic preaching of Henry Beecher. It was from attending the church service that Sam learned of an upcoming excursion that Henry Beecher was planning. Henry was going to take a group of churchgoers on a trip across the ocean and tour through key sites of what he called the quote-unquote Holy Land. They would go through parts of Europe, along with Egypt, Greece, Crimea, Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine, with the ultimate goal for Henry Ward Beecher being to gather enough information and material so as to write a biography of Jesus. Apparently the New Testament of the Bible just wasn't enough
Didn't
for him.
cut it. Got it.
Now, when Sam caught wind of this strange adventure across the sea, his depression faded almost instantly, and he knew he had to be a part of it. This wasn't just an opportunity for an adventure, but an opportunity for a new book. So he wrote to his employer, the Alta California, and said, quote, "Send me $1,200 at once. I want to go abroad." That was literally all it took, and they sent him the cash, which is about $25,000 in today's currency, and Sam bought a ticket for the excursion.
No questions asked. Here you go, man.
They at that point, he was hot. You know what I mean? And they were like,
it's true.
If you're going abroad and you're going to write, here, take it. We're going to sell so many newspapers, we don't even care. Go, kind of a thing.
It's so funny that he wasn't Christian, but he was just like, yeah, I'll tag along. He's so fucking Bugs Bunny about everything he does. It's so, the fact that he was just like, they're like, wow, you're going on this trip to go see the life of Jesus and where he went and where he stepped. And he was like, yeah, man, I guess. And like, so you must be pretty into the faith. No, not really. It's like, but you've been here for 2 months with us. Yeah. So you do believe in Jesus. No, not really. It's just like,
check this out. You jest, but check this out. At first, Sam tried to buy his ticket in disguise. He showed up drunk to the trip organizer's office and introduced himself as the Reverend Mark Twain, who was just in from the Sandwich Islands. But the organizer, a man named Charles Duncan, saw through the ruse. So Sam came clean about who he was and amazingly was granted passage. So at first he was like, I'm going to try to swindle my way. And then the guy was like, you're just a drunk idiot. And he was like, touche.
I'm the Reverend Mark Twain and I need to go see Jesus. Are you? No. That's fucking hilarious.
I know, it's amazing. Now, before his journey would begin in June, Sam took a brief trip back home to visit his family, whom he had not seen in 6 years. His mother, Jane, who is now 64, was elated to see her baby boy. He even took a brief trip back to his hometown of Hannibal to give a performance. But he was soon back in New York and getting ready for his trip overseas. Over the past few months, the trip had become something of a media sensation. Not only was it being led by the most famous preacher in the U.S., but various celebrities of the day had also signed up, like General William Sherman, a hero of the Union Army. He was the guy that did the From the Land to the Sea through Atlanta on a scorched earth campaign.
Oh, yes.
That's General Sherman, dude. He was going to come along on the trip.
Wow.
Big names of the day were going to go along on this. But as the launch date approached, more and more people dropped out. First, Henry Ward Beecher dropped because his congregation was getting all uppity that he was using their tithing money to take an all-expenses-paid trip to the Holy Land. Which is very fair.
Yeah.
Once he was out, the dominoes started to fall. General Sherman bowed out, and then other passengers canceled their tickets, but the trip persisted. Finally, on June 7th, 1867, Sam boarded a ship called the Quaker City, along with 65 additional passengers. The group was about to begin their adventures through Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, and unbeknownst to all of them, Sam would be taking constant, ferocious notes, all of which he would later turn into a book. And by the way, this excursion is considered the first pleasure cruise in history.
That's...
So Carnival Cruises, Disney Cruise Line, all of that can get traced back to the Quaker City and Mark Twain going abroad with these folks.
That's wild.
Isn't that insane? Up until this point, this had just never been done. People were like, no, I have to go to London, so I'm going to take a trip to London. This is the first time somebody went, what if, hear me out, we're going to get on a boat, and we're just going to go like here, and here, and then we're just going to like come back home.
Hang out.
Yeah. And people were like, huh. Like what for? For fun. Like, we're going to go for fun. And they were, huh. Yeah, I could do that. Like,
well, it was still thinly veiled as Jesus fun, but still fun.
But the whole thing was sightseeing. That was literally it, right?
Yeah.
And now that Henry Ward Beecher was out, it's like, there's no biography of Jesus being written. It's just...
Oh, you're right.
You guys are just going to go. Like, just to see these sights and then go home. So it is literally just a pleasure cruise. That's the whole point of this.
That's so funny.
Now, the passenger list was only half the size of what it was intended to be. But for Sam, this was perfect. Rather than trying to navigate some 150 passengers, he could now focus on the smaller group and dig deeper into their quirks, which ultimately made for better stories. Because all the other celebrities had backed out, Mark Twain was now the preeminent celebrity of the trip, and everyone was soon noticing his quick wit and gift for gab. But through it all, Sam was taking notes on everyone. Of one woman, he wrote, quote, "She's a Frenchy-looking woman with a dog. Small mongrel, black and tan brute, a married woman of 30, with dark skin inclined to hairiness, and a general suggestion all about her of coarseness and vulgarity." Of another passenger, he wrote, quote, "There's a long-legged, simple, green, wide-mouthed, horse-laughing young fellow. He says the most witless things and then laughs uproariously at them. He laughs dreadfully at everything and swears it's good, dead good, by George. I wish he would fuck off."
No, he didn't.
Now, historians of Mark Twain will call me out, because technically he writes, "I wish he would F dash." Come on.
Yes.
What else is he saying?
Yeah, man.
He's saying, "I wish he would fuck off." Like,
that's so fucking funny. Oh my God. He's like, it's like he's a caricature artist, but just with words.
Yes.
Like,
That's
it
a
reminds
great
me
way to
of
say
like, like Da Vinci, how Da Vinci used to like have dinner with people and be like, wow, Da Vinci's such a nice guy. He's always having dinner with me. When in reality, he's just like sketching the weird parts of their face. That's Mark Twain.
The Queen of Hearts image lady.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I think that's such a good
literally
analogy.
Just a literary version of Da Vinci's grotesques.
It is
like,
such
just
a good analogy.
Hanging out with these people. He's a horse-faced guy who just thinks, which I'm totally picturing. I know exactly. I'm imagining like in a modern sense, like a tech bro who always wears loafers and is like, it's Monday. That's exactly like, wow. I'm like right there with him.
And by the way, if anybody is ever like really curious about this stuff, there are books published of all of his journal entries from this time, untouched, unedited. So you can read pages and pages of him just describing the people and the journey. And that's where a lot of this stuff has come from. It's very, very interesting.
Fucking hilarious.
Now, one more description I'll give you, as of a man he nicknamed the Oracle. He described as, quote, an innocent old ass who eats for 4 and looks wiser than the whole Academy of France would have any right to look, and never uses a one-syllable word when he can think of a longer one. Which for me was maybe one of the funniest descriptions, because I'm like, I know people like that.
Wow. It's so much like the grotesque too, because like Da Vinci, his whole thing was he would find archetypes of faces. You know, when you see a face and you're like, I know that face. I've seen a lot of people with that kind of face. He's doing the same thing with these people where like immediately based off of the description, you're like, I immediately know somebody who's like that.
Yep. He's amazing at it. Like, it's one of his truest gifts is his ability to describe. It's amazing. Yeah. Now, it was a veritable cornucopia of real-life characters whose nature was so contrary to Sam's, they were absolutely perfect targets for Mark Twain to raise his pistol of wit and take aim. The group were generally wealthy, snobbish, and sanctimonious, so Sam had no problem skewering them in his journals. As the ship made its way across the Atlantic Ocean, Sam deservedly earned the title of resident bad boy, regularly hosting card games, drinking far too much whiskey, swearing loudly, and wholeheartedly ignoring the Sabbath, which all of them were about. The group of travelers were split 50-50 between those who clutched their pearls over Sam's exploits and those who found him charming. But there was also a small group of young people who just couldn't get enough of Sam and would regularly stay up late in his cabin, filled with dense clouds of tobacco smoke, playing cards, and drinking whiskey. Sam affectionately nicknamed the group the Quaker City Nighthawks, or the Sinners for short. So metal.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, one of these sinners was a man named Charles Langdon. And though Sam didn't know it at the time, Charles Langdon would one day, not too far in the future, become his brother-in-law. But we'll talk more about that in the next episode. Now, after about 10 days at sea, the group made a quick stop at the Azores Islands, which is part of Portugal, but it's way out in the ocean if you look on the map. Then
Gotcha.
From there, it was another 12 days before finally the Strait of Gibraltar loomed into view with Africa on their right and Spain on their left. They stopped to check out the Rock of Gibraltar, then spent a day or so in Tangier, which Sam found thrilling, as it was his first true taste of foreign living, delighting in the fact that, quote, there were no white men visible. After that, it was off to Marseille, France, where they drank wine, did some sightseeing, and even visited the infamous Castle d'If, made most famous by a one Alexander Dumas, who used it as Edmond Dantes's long-term place of imprisonment in The Count of Monte Cristo.
Dude, it's all coming together, man.
I told you. I was so excited for this episode because I was like, ooh, we're going to get there and he's going to get excited.
Dude, that's so cool.
So
what the fuck?
Mark Twain visited Castle d'If.
Man, I'm there's no way that they had any connections, but they were writing at the same time. I wonder if he ever read his own, read any books together.
They do. They have a connection. I was saving it for office hours, but do you want me to just tell you now?
Yeah, just do it now. Fuck it, man.
Okay, I'm going to tell you now. So it didn't really fit into the narrative of Mark Twain's life anywhere, but I did want to share a few details about Mark Twain's interactions with a woman named Ada Isaacs Mencken. Now, this was when he was in Nevada, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, Ada Isaacs Mencken was basically a precursor to Marilyn Monroe around the 1860s. She was an utter sexual icon and was known not only for her acting, but singing as well. Mark Twain's interactions with her were brief, as he found her to be a pretty unsavory person, but he did watch a performance of hers and was even invited to her house to have dinner. The dinner went terribly, and Mark Twain excused himself early, but the reason I bring her up is that she had a few other interactions that I thought you all might find interesting. First, one of her biggest claims to fame that became an enduring piece of history was in her being the basis and inspiration for a poem called Mazeppa by Lord Byron.
Oh my God, bro.
Okay. Additionally, when she was about 30 years old, she went on over to Paris, where she started up a not-so-secret affair with Alexander Dumas.
Alexander Dumas. Dude.
There you go, buddy.
Awesome. Who do we have now? We've got Tesla connection, we have Dumas connection, we have Lord Byron, and by extension, Mary Shelley connection, because if you remember, Mary Shelley's sister was all up in Lord Byron's business.
Correct.
They
which
had
is
a
why I
kid
brought
together.
it up. Which is why I brought it up.
Dude.
So, yeah, I was like, I didn't include that in any of the episodes because I was like, oh, that's just not in the narrative because it's just too much to talk about. But, like, we're in this zone of, like, we're making connections here. So,
yeah.
And I'll give you we're about to make a couple more.
Dude.
Now, after visiting Castle D'If, it was off to Paris, which Sam thoroughly enjoyed, in part due to the great food and wine, but also due to a devilishly exciting show he witnessed where women danced something called the can-can.
Oh, my God.
He even got to see a parade with Napoleon Bonaparte III, nephew to Napoleon himself. The only real downside to Paris were the scam artists who apparently were constantly trying to swindle him. Now, from there, it was off to Genoa in Italy, where the group planned to see some religious relics, which Sam found to be dubious at best. On 2 separate occasions, he was taken into 2 separate cathedrals to see the ashes of St. Luke, and was even shown a painting of the Virgin Mary that was supposedly painted by the saint. To this, Sam wrote, quote, "I could not help admiring the apostle's modesty in never once mentioning in his writings that he could paint."
I thought you were about to tell me that he saw Da Vinci, because that would have really sealed the deal.
Now, and pretty much every other church they visited, the clergy there claimed to have in their possession a piece of the actual cross that Jesus was crucified upon, and 3 of them even claimed to have the actual crown of thorns. By his estimation, he'd seen enough wood to construct a handful of crosses, plus a few kegs worth of nails, which would crucify 40 Christs on a cross, so he was none too impressed.
That's so funny. Like, how big was this guy?
Like, how many nails did it take?
He must have been buff.
Now, from there, it was off to Milan, where Sam got to see firsthand, inside the ruins of a small chapel, Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper painting.
Come on. Dude, he is the Kevin Bacon of the fucking biographers at this point.
I'm telling you, and we're not done yet.
And okay, what time was this?
This is 1861, I want to say.
Okay, so if I remember correctly, this would be right around the time where somebody would attempt to touch it up and try to repaint over all of the faces on Da Vinci's original painting, which caused a riot.
And I misspoke. 67. We're in 1867, not 61.
Yeah. I remember like 1850s-ish. Somebody tried to do a touch-up. And by this point, the feet of Jesus, I want to say, was removed because they wanted to add a doorway over his painting.
Oh, wow.
If you remember, this is like his most abused painting.
Yes. And of it, I am sorry to say, Akiva, he was not very impressed, mainly because it was old, worn, and beaten up. He commented that people were constantly going there to paint on their own. They wanted to recreate it, so they would sit there and paint. And he actually commented that he thought the people painting were better than the painting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because if you remember, Da Vinci experimented with pigments, and a lot of those pigments didn't hold up to time. And then the church itself did not seem to really give a shit about it. Oh my God, yes. And this is after Napoleon. So we also know that Napoleon's army used this area as a prison, and they scratched out the eyes of the apostles.
There you go.
If I remember correctly, I'll have to double check my writing from that season. But this thing was fucked up by the time Mark Twain saw it.
Yeah.
It like seeing it now, you can see it much more in its original state. But by this point, there would have been a doorway put through it. A lot of the pigments would have faded. So like a lot of the blues are now completely transparent. The eyes would have been possibly scratched out. And then some idiot tried to retouch up all of the faces and paint over Da Vinci's existing work. Mm-hmm. So it probably looked pretty terrible.
Yep. Now, after that, it was off to Como, Italy, previous home of Franz Liszt.
I can't even, bro.
It's insane. Then it was off to Venice, where once again, Sam was none too impressed. He thought the city felt sad and forgotten, reminding him of an Arkansas city under floodwaters. He said the gondola boats felt like a hearse and described the gondolier as, quote, a mangy, barefooted gutter snipe with a portion of his raiment, shirt, on exhibition, which should have been sacred from public scrutiny. So basically saying he just looks like crap and he just needs to tuck his shirt in.
That's such a funny observation to make when you go all the way to Italy. It's like, wow, Da Vinci's paintings really suck, and Venice is just reminds me of my old house when it got flooded down when the dam broke.
Yeah. Now, though it probably never happened, Mark Twain would later say that while in a gondola, he shouted at the gondolier saying, quote, look here, Rodrigo Gonzalez, Michelangelo Smith, I'm not going to stand any such caterwallering as that. If this thing goes on, one of us has got to take water. It is enough that my cherished dreams of Venice have been blighted forever without taxing your talents to make the matter worse. Another yelp out of you and overboard you go. He basically just hated the gondolier singing.
That's really funny.
Shut up. Just try to enjoy Venice. Keep in mind, he's like 31. So this is like the grumpiest old man, or I think this might be like 33 or 4 or something like that. But like he's like the grumpiest old man at this point as a 30-year-old. And I love it. I'm so here for it.
So relatable for you.
Now, it was also in Venice that we get our first true glimpse of Sam's ever-growing rejection of racism. While walking through the city, Sam and his group encountered a black man who said he was a freed slave originally from South Carolina. Sam described the man by saying, quote, he is well educated. He reads, writes, and speaks English, Italian, Spanish, and French with perfect facility. Is a worshiper of art and thoroughly conversant with it. He dresses better than any of us, I think, and is daintily polite. He went on to say, and I'm sorry for the slightly colorful language here, quote, Negroes are deemed as good as white people in Venice, and so this man feels no desire to go back to his native land. His judgment is correct.
Wow.
Yeah. Basically, he's like, I don't see why Americans are the way we are. They're just people like us. Why are we doing this? It's basically the attitude, you know.
That's so
Again,
cool.
Everybody, travel exposes you to things, and it makes you
go outside, see
better.
something.
Gosh, And we'll talk about that later on. There's like a quote when he talks about his travels, and it illuminates that point. But man, he is a perfect example of travel opens your mind. Do it more. But after stopping through a few more Italian cities, including Rome, Naples, and Pompeii, the group got back on their boat and headed for Greece. Now, Sam liked Greece considerably more than Italy and was in awe to be in the place of what he called the, quote, great past. Initially, the boat was quarantined at a dock in Athens due to a cholera outbreak, but mischievous Sam had other plans. After waiting on their boat for a few days, Sam organized a small crew to paddle a rowboat ashore at midnight. In one single night, he managed to see the Acropolis, the Temple of Minerva, the Temple of Hercules, and the Parthenon. For Sam, it felt like an adventure out of a childhood book. Then, it was off to Constantinople, not Istanbul, in Turkey, where Sam comically commented of the Sultan, quote, "The Sultan has 800 wives. It makes our cheeks burn with shame to see such a thing permitted here in Turkey. But we do not mind it so much in Salt Lake City, however." The jabs are real with this guy. Like, he knows how to like, again, it's like, that's an Anthony Jeselnik joke. You know what I mean? Of like, you think I'm going in this direction, then whoosh, quick left turn. Like,
yep.
This guy, I love his brain. Now, from there, the group headed up to Russia through the Black Sea, where incredibly, they were invited to have dinner with Tsar Alexander II. But the stay in Russia was short, and the group headed south to Beirut in Lebanon, which was really the beginning of their true journey and the start of the quote-unquote Holy Land. Here, the group hoped to see the true origins of the Bible, retrace the steps of its heroes, and deepen their spirituality. Sam's ship, the Quaker City, docked in Beirut, and the passengers then split into two groups. Sam's group was going hardcore with a 200-mile journey on camelback through the dry deserts that passed from Beirut to Damascus, then to Jerusalem.
That had to be like 4 or 5 days at least, right?
Yes, I think it was like 3 days, something like that.
Okay.
Now, as they organized their supplies, Sam took the opportunity to soak up the city and noted of the women, quote, "They cover their entire faces with dark-colored or black veils and then expose their breasts to the public." He loved it. Red-blooded American man he is.
Yeah.
Now, when the group had gotten their supplies in order, Sam was flabbergasted to learn that for just $5 in gold every day, they would be joined by 19 servants, 26 pack mules that carried 5 massive tents that would be decked out with carpets, beds, pillows, wash bins, and a full-service menu of good eats like roast mutton, goose, chicken, and a variety of desserts.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
This
like
is
out in the dunes with the
Yes.
rugs and the tents. Tasting History, Max Miller advertised for a very similar thing in Morocco, and I got to watch him like eat this food that they like cooked in the sand bed. I've always wanted to do that.
That's awesome. But yeah, dirt cheap for all of this, for the entire group to go.
Love that exchange rate.
Now, Sam loved it, but thought the entire group of quote-unquote religious Christians were basically full of shit. As they pressed on through the desert, Sam was constantly seeing barren landscapes filled with sick, poverty-stricken people who were literally covered in flies, and his group of supposedly religious pilgrims hardly batted an eye or did anything to provide aid. On the contrary, at every ancient ruin the group stopped to admire, they would all chip off a piece of the stone or steal some kind of artifact to take home as a souvenir.
Oh, that makes me so mad.
Yeah.
That makes me so mad. That's like what happened with the Wailing Wall in Israel too. That's like, oh,
it's
wow.
the worst thing you can do when you travel. It is the worst thing you can do, which is why people there are signs in Hawaii that are like, "Do not take rocks. if every person that came to Hawaii took a rock, we would have no more rocks left in Hawaii. Like,
like there are a lot of people who want rocks.
Like,
human erosion is real, dude.
It is.
Like if you look at the old temple, right? If you look at the Wailing Wall, you can see like 10 feet above, right? It's like the plaster is still intact. You can see all of these things, but then the second it gets to, human height, cracks all the way through, people shoving stuff in there, like,
Yeah, and that's exactly what these people were doing. And every religious site they stopped at, they were like, ooh, let me chip off a piece of something or steal a little piece. Like, all of them
obnoxious.
Now, he saw their actions as hypocritical to the messaging they claimed to uphold and wrote, quote, I wish this vandalism could be stopped. They broke off fragments of Noah's tomb, from the exquisite sculptures of the Temple of Baalbek, from the houses of Judas and Ananias. They have been hacking and chipping these old arches here that Jesus looked up in the flesh. Their idea of the Savior's religion seems to me distorted. Yeah.
That seems like a very serious, like, normally he's like cracking jokes, but he really does not like this.
No, he does not. He's, again, I think the key word here is the hypocrisy of it all, that he's just like, you people are supposedly here for this like spiritual thing, and that's not what you're doing at all. It's like a cheap tourist grab. Like, you're actually ignoring the teachings you're supposed to uphold. You're passing by poor and sick people, and then you're going over to their holy sites and literally stealing from it. Like, what is actually happening right now?
That's disgusting.
There
was a big issue with this at this time period because, Americans, especially with things like Manifest Destiny, the culture was not necessarily one of enjoyment and observance, but more of conquest and taking of property, right? Like the fact that you could stake a claim for 50 miles of some random area in the middle of Utah or whatever just a couple decades ago led to this thing where like the redwood forests, these beautiful forests that should have been observed, we felt this sense of like conquest, this sense of like winning when we cut these down or shot the buffalo down or all of this. It also reminds me of mummy fever. If you remember, like we talked about that in France after Napoleon went to Egypt and, the Egypt Institute started telling people about what was in Egypt. They were literally just taking bodies, remains, people's ancestors and fucking eating them.
Yeah, dude.
We had this in this time period of economic expansion, of land expansion. The culture was not to just observe, and this is where like Teddy Roosevelt comes in, where he kind of tries to bring in this new culture of observation over ownership. But before then, like, and you can hear people talk about this in all sorts of different places. Like I remember even in Colorado Springs, the Cave of the Winds, there are certain parts of the cave where there were these stalactites that took thousands of years to grow, but during this Manifest Destiny sort of culture of ownership,
break them off and
people would literally break them off and take them home with them. Ugh.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, that irks me.
Oh, 100%. And yeah, he did not tolerate it. And just as a little teaser for the next episode, we don't really talk about it in this one, but a couple years from now, when he goes on to a lecture tour again, the actual title, because it's about his experiences during this time, the title of his lecture is American Vandal, which is also a sick name, dude.
Yeah,
like,
it is sick.
It's real good. Anyhow, when the group arrived at the Sea of Galilee, the waters of which Jesus supposedly walked upon, the group were beside themselves with excitement. They began flagging down a local sailor to take them on a tour, with their leader saying to their guide, quote, "How much? Ask him how much. Anything, whatever. Tell him we don't care what the expense is." The sailor told the group he wanted 2 Napoleons, which is equal to about $8 at the time. The group leader went quiet before saying, quote, "Too much. We'll give him 1.
Oh my God.
But the joke was on them. The sailor basically said, "Fuck off," and sailed away, leaving the group on the shore, never getting to sail across the Sea of Galilee. One of the group members, by the name of Jack Van Nostrand, turned to the group leader and said, quote, "Well, Denny, do you wonder now that Christ walked?"
Wow.
Good stuff, man.
That sounds fake. Like they are so quintessentially like fakely pious. Ugh, that's great.
It's the most perfect representation of the spirit of the entire trip. Is literally 2 seconds ago you're beside yourself that you could sail upon the sea on which Christ walked, and the guy's like, $8? That's that cool? And they're like, $4, you get nothing. And he's like, then you get nothing. Okay, bye. And they were like, wait, no, nerds. And like, they literally don't get to do it because they're dicks. Like,
yeah, because they didn't want to pay a poor sailor a little bit too much.
Quite literally a fisherman on the Sea of Galilee, which is where the Apostle Peter was supposedly called to become an apostle following Jesus. Like, it is beyond me how
they could not see their own irony.
Oh man. Like, and that should tell you everything about the spirit of this trip, right? Is like, what are you people actually here for? You're not here to actually, engage with something. You're here for the story. Oh man.
Yeah. And on a sort of separate note, it kind of reminds me of, I think this was also a Top Gear thing. One of the dudes there was talking about some trip to, I think, like Malaysia or something, where the British pound was so much stronger than the currency in the city that he was in. He was just like, for those of you who are tourists and you see a restaurant that is still significantly cheaper than the food that you pay for at home, and you go, no, I don't want to go there. That's a tourist trap. Obviously, they're charging us more because we're foreigners. Just pay it.
Yeah.
Literally, one of your dollars is worth so many more hours of their work.
Yep.
Like, don't get scammed, obviously. You don't got to pay $600 for something. But, like, if it's a little more expensive but still cheaper than home, just buy the fucking thing.
Yep.
You're doing them a service. Like, that guy, maybe $8 could have been enough for him to not fish for the next 2 days.
Right.
Great. $8 doesn't mean anything to you.
Exactly.
You spent $25,000 to get here.
Correct.
Like
Anyway.
Yeah.
Now, from Mark Twain's point of view, the group would only continue to display their hypocrisy, disrespect, and feigned religious piety, exposing their desires not to actually live like Christians, but rather get back home with a story to tell and a souvenir in their pocket that proved to all of their friends in American society that they were all, in fact, very devout people. The pistol of wit that was Mark Twain was about to be raised, taking square aim at this group of religious fanboys. His experiences with them as they traveled through Europe and the Holy Land would soon be turned into the single most successful book of Mark Twain's lifetime, and one of the most popular travel books of all time. Mark Twain was about to make massive international waves in both the literary and religious communities in writing a book titled The Innocents Abroad, or The New Pilgrim's Journey. And that's where we'll pick back up for part 5 of Mark Twain.
Dude.
Fun stuff, right? Fun stuff.
I absolutely loved this episode. The way that his description of one of those other passengers pulled a laugh out of the center of my stomach. I involuntarily was so great. He is just a funny guy, and you feel like you know him. It's just.
I think that's one of the biggest things for me is that I feel like I know this guy, like actually as a person, right? Of like, not just like, oh, I'm getting to know you. It's like, I know exactly who you are, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would almost, it's not quite the same, but it's sort of like, who Kevin Smith, the director, is? He did like Mallrats and Clerks and Dogma and all that kind of stuff. So there's an actor that he always uses. His name is Jason Mewes. And literally Kevin Smith knew Jason Mewes in high school and beyond. Jason Mewes was literally a drug dealer. But Kevin Smith was like, you are genuinely really funny. Like you're hilarious. And so when he started making movies, he was like, Jay, I want you to actually come and be a character in these movies. Just be yourself. I'm going to tell you lines to say and you can improvise and blah, 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 blah. And now Jason Mewes is like this sort of like indie darling that people love. He's kind of got a bit of a cult following. And in the years since, Kevin Smith has been asked about like why he was like, beyond him just being funny, why did you include him? And I love Kevin Smith's response. He said, because everybody knows that guy. Yeah. Everybody knows the guy who was not overly ambitious or like, you know, oh, I want to be this famous thing or whatever, but they killed you. They were so funny naturally that you couldn't help yourself. And he was like, I just want the world to know about this guy. That's how I feel about Mark Twain, of like, you just happen to write this down and share it. Otherwise, you're that guy that I know who is so naturally funny. You just have this ability to pull laughs out of me. It's amazing. Yeah, it feels pull laughs out of you is such a great description too, because it's like, you know, once again, going into this, there have been many characters that have had funny moments, right? But it's like he's traveling through time to actually yank laughter out of your soul. He's just so fucking funny, and like him going on this religious trip is like, it's like one of those things that like you and your buddy would like be like, oh, did you hear that a bunch of those dudes from the church are going to go have a cruise and help a bunch of kids in Africa? That would be hilarious if we just like tagged along just for fun. Yeah. And he did that. Yeah. And 100%. Like, just the complete lack of inhibition, the fact that he's so willing to just point out a truth and just snipe it so precisely, kind of like we were talking about before. Like, I think the key for a lot of really famous and talented people is not necessarily the strength of their intelligence, but their ability to perceive. Yeah. Like the fact that he immediately like just noticed the behaviors and the tics and the shit that the people were doing while he was on this trip with them, and was able to just so precisely pinpoint what it was that frustrated him. I talk about this sometimes with Shalana. Shalana, when she does art, likes to watch a movie over and over again that she maybe doesn't even love, that she doesn't like, because she's like, I want to know why I don't like it. And I feel like Mark Twain has that sense. Yeah. And that can be such a powerful tool when you're writing, because the things that you dislike often make great fucking comedy. 100%. And we're going to talk about this more in the next episode. But it's amazing. Man, I don't want to like spoil too much of it, but just kind of know Mark Twain, when we say like he's the godfather of American comedy, blah, 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 it's so much further beyond that. It's like he literally invented the American comedic sensibility, where when he releases, spoiler alert, he releases this as a book, right? I just said it a second ago, but I'm going to read a whole bunch of quotes from critics. And what they start to say is that like, it's naturally funny. There's nothing that's forced wit. It's not like, and I'm saving the comparison that I write in there that some people will hate me for and you will love me for, Akiva. Mm-hmm. But it's like there are certain like even modern day comedians that you know that you're like, okay, like I guess you're funny. I'm not really sure why people go to see you all the time or whatever, because you just kind of have this sort of forced way about you. And then there are other people that get up and just talk and you're like, it's just funny. He's just a funny way of being. He's just like Larry David, right? Larry David can say almost anything, naturally funny, and he's just a funny guy, right? Maybe I'm already gonna get haters, and maybe this is the one that you were thinking of, but like Kevin Hart, sure. Stop trying. Stop fucking trying so hard. You know, like there are people who just have it, and then people who have to work really hard at it. And I'm sorry, but they're. And that's not to say the naturally talented don't work at it, but you know what I'm saying. Like, that obviously, natural feeling Mark Twain had to work at it, but like his humor was so natural that it was like a part of himself. It was a part of him. And it was like you kind of said a second ago, where it was like you didn't know a laugh was coming and you were like, because it was, it wasn't even necessarily like it was framed as a joke. It just kind of was said and it was funny. It's sort of like love him or hate him. Ricky Gervais, I love one of the quotes that he says of, let me tell you how comedy works. I say the wrong thing. You laugh because you know it's the wrong thing to say. that's a very similar thing of how Mark Twain operated, which is
Yes.
like, he's going to skewer these people and you're laughing because you know he should not be skewering these people, but that's why it's funny.
Yeah.
You know?
But I also, what I love about him too is that he tends to punch up and not down, which is a key factor that is, I think, missing in some comedians' routines. And that's like, punching down is what, like, over extended period of time, that's what hack is. Like, when you're just like making fun of people that it's like, hey man, just stop. Versus Mark Twain is like, I'm with all these hoity-toity millionaires who like say that they're Christians and say that they're these devout people, and they're literally chipping off, you know, monuments and not paying people for rides and being stingy and not helping the sick and the blind, and that's free fucking game. Sorry.
Yes.
When you're an asshole, that's free game.
100%. And
I can say whatever I want about you.
That was his whole feeling, is that he was like, you know, there are people that I can make fun of, and then there are people that deserve to be made fun of. Like, that's who I'm going to take aim at, right? Again, I don't want to give too much away for the next episode, because it's very, and I draw a lot of kind of cool philosophical things, I think, and I read a lot of cool reviews from people at the time, and again, it'll give you this sense of like, holy shit, this guy, like what he did for American sensibility, not just like, oh, the Moby Dick really was a big hit and really influential for it. It was like, you are laughing at things today because of the road that Mark Twain paved. Like, it's
so funny too.
Intense.
I feel like we're having the same rant that I had about Tesla with electricity, but with Mark Twain with comedy, where it's like, oh yeah, no, he's the father of it. No. He didn't just help make it. He is it. Like, your life right now is because of Tesla. Comedy right now is because of Mark Twain.
Yes.
You know?
I think there are probably very few people out there that would say that's not true. Like, it's so huge. And we're going to talk about the impact that he has in this next episode of like, it was a fundamental paradigm shift in literature, comedic sensibility, what can be taken seriously, what can be illuminating. Man, it's awesome. And for me, it's one of those that like, for anybody out there who loves comedy like I do, I love stand-up comics, and you know, you'll hear them get on a podcast and kind of wax poetic about comedy. It came from Mark Twain, man. Like, he was the guy that basically made it so that like, prior to him, comedy was less than. It was not a thing to be taken seriously. And then he came along and went, not only am I going to make you laugh, I'm going to make you think through the laughter.
Yeah. It's
like, I'm telling you, this guy, like quickly becoming a hero of mine in many, many ways. So
I agree. Same.
Love this dude. Love this story.
I'm so excited for the next episode, bro.
It has been so fun. And like I said, so by the way, all of that stuff that I just covered throughout them traveling through Europe and the Holy Land and all these amazing stories. This is why I said, like, I'm taking a longer time. If you want a condensed story, go watch the Ken Burns documentary series. It's 2 parts, about 3.5 hours long, something like that. I swear to you, that entire section, what I just covered of him traveling, is covered in, 30 seconds? Maybe a minute in Ken Burns' documentary. It's like, and then he goes overseas and he does this thing and goes on many adventures. And from that experience, he wrote a book called The New Pilgrim's Progress, kind of a thing. And it was like, oh, okay. And we missed all the stuff about what he was observing, what he was feeling, them missing the Sea of Galilee. All of that is not even touched. So that's why I was so insistent on like, I'm going to take my time here, because those little stories, that's it, man. That's the good stuff. Like, anyway, I'm getting excited.
Dude, I'm pumped. I'm so pumped.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you liked it. I hope everybody else out there is liking it too. I would imagine so if you've made it all the way to part 4 so far, because I don't know, I'm having a blast doing it. So thanks everybody so much for listening. Hope you continue to do so. One more time, if you want to support us, please do so by going to our Patreon page, patreon.com/thebiographers. If you want to give us a review, you can do so on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all those places where you get your podcast entertainment. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, you can email us at thebiographerspodcast@gmail.com. And as always, Akiva, any medal updates?
I have tons of classes at Hardy and Fuller. Most of them are actually selling out, but if you are still interested in learning how to make a knife, if you're in or near Denver or plan to be in Denver soon, please check out Hardy and Fuller. I'm devoting a lot of my time and energy making new classes. We're going to hopefully be adding a Damascus class. We're going to be adding some more intermediate classes. Right now, we have a dagger class on the way. It's going to be a lot of fun. So once again, if you want to learn how to make knives and actually get to hang out with me, we can talk about the biographers as well. Go to hardyandfuller.com, book a class here in Denver. As far as knives go, I still have knives on the website. I think I have 3 or 4 left. I'm really hoping to clear out this batch soon so I can make some new ones for the holidays. So please go to metalworkbymiola.com and you can use the code biographers for 10% off any order, including custom orders that you might want.
Nice. Do it. And I'll also, I've never said this before. For whatever reason, the thoughts just never occurred to me. But also, if you're in the Denver area and if you like trivia, I do host trivia every Tuesday night.
Dude, that's crazy that you haven't brought this up.
Never
we
mentioned it before.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. I just do it to get out of the house and have some fun and you know, have a beer and whatever else. But yeah, if you guys just feel like doing some trivia, having some fun, saying hi to me, you absolutely can. I do it at a place called Chipper's Lanes in Broomfield, also called 100 Nickel, because it's on 100 Nickel Street. So yeah, that's every Tuesday night at 7:30 is when that starts. So if you're in Denver and you want to go and do some trivia, come and hang out and have some fun. But otherwise, we will let you guys go. Again, appreciate y'all for being here. And do remember, like always, ignorance is not stupidity. It is the absence of knowledge. And I do hope you all learned something today.
See ya!
You've been listening to The Biographers. For more information, please visit thebiographerspodcast.com.